So we're going to go back to the Creation Grant page. And to get to the portal, we're going to click on the Apply Online, the sidebar. So once you get to the sign-in page for the grant portal, you'll be asked to sign in using your user ID, which is an email address, along with the password that you selected when creating your account, and then you'll click the blue Sign In button. Excuse me. But if you have not created an account yet, you can create one here by clicking on the little blue Register link, which is a little smaller below. And you'll be asked for your name, your email address, you'll create a password, and you'll be asked whether or not you're an individual artist or an organization. And to apply for an artist development grant, art in state buildings, or creation grant, you're going to need to create an individual account. And that's true even if you're applying as a group of artists. And after you've filled out the contact information, you'll submit by clicking the blue Register button at the bottom of the page. But I'm already registered, so I'm going to go in this way and sign in. And I've already started some applications, so now they can be found right here when I sign in. There's also a little piece on the main part of the portal page that will help you find if you're looking for available grants, which is here at the top, or your saved applications. And if you've received an award, you'll find the report that you need to fill out once you're ready in your portal as well. So I'm going to go to available grants. I'm going to Creation Grant. You would click here. Because I've already created an application, it wants me to find here. So I'll click on Open, which will take me to the application. There is a description at the top about how to navigate the application. You can either click on the different sections of the application using this navigation bar here, and you can jump around back and forth, fill it out in pieces and sections piecemeal, and scroll to the bottom and save your work as you go. You can also navigate using this button to go to the previous or next page. So there's two different ways that you can navigate. The grant guidelines are also copied here. Again, the criteria are very important for crafting your responses. This is a complete copy of the guidelines. So you can check that anytime you need to. In the applicant information section, it's going to ask you for basic contact information, a website address if you have one that you'd like the panel to view when reviewing your application. After you enter a website, you can click on the green Open button and just make sure that it works. So I used the Arts Council's and it did work. And also you have a place here to check if you're applying as an individual or a group. If you click group, you'll have a drop-down box that will open up, and you can enter your group's name and list the members of the group, including their role in your project. And now if we go back up to project information section, you're going to describe your project in one sentence. And it says grant funds will be used to, and you're going to fill in the blank. This is the language that's going to be used in your contract should you receive a grant. You'll have a chance to describe the project in detail in the rest of the application, and you can see some examples of other project descriptions which can be helpful, and you can view the previous grantees list using a link that's provided here. and you can read how they start. There's a few beginning with grant funds will be used to support the creation of a limestone monument, a music composition fusing jazz, and you can just get a sense of what we might be looking for there and what you might want to write for your brief description. You're going to enter your project start date here, and your project must begin after September 1st, 2022. But if this is a multi-year project, as some projects are, you're only going to enter the part of the project timeline that the grant funding is going to cover if received. And then the project end date, this is the part of the project supported with grant funding. It needs to be completed no later than August 31st, 2023. The next question is the artistic discipline, and from the drop-down list you will make a selection that best describes your project. The project discipline might be different from your personal artistic discipline, but your answer is going to help us identify reviewers who have expertise relevant to your proposed project. If your project involves more than one discipline, select which discipline is most critical to understanding your project from the drop-down list. And if your project is a multidisciplinary project, you're going to want to click on that, which will allow you to tell us a little bit more and let us know which two disciplines are most critical to understanding your project. And again, this is going to help us identify what expertise we need to match with your application. So for example, a graphic novel might have illustration and memoir as expertise that's relevant for understanding your project. Next are narrative questions, and you have two options. You can either answer them in writing or by recording your answers as audio or video files. You only need to select one option to answer these narrative questions. If you want to record your answers, you'll go to the recorded narrative section. Each recording should be no longer than 5 minutes. You're going to want to keep your recording simple and to the point, and read each question out loud before answering. You don't want to include edits or special effects. The production quality of recordings is not considered in your application review. Just make sure we can hear and understand you, and keep editing and post-production embellishment to a minimum. One tip for putting your best foot forward if recording video is to make sure you consider your background and your surrounding environment, and if possible, minimize any distracting details. So to complete this section, you would record yourself reading the first question out loud. Number 1, tell us about your project, include what the resulting work will be, and then proceed to record your answer to the question. And once you have a recording that you're satisfied with, you'll want to save and upload by clicking the green Upload File button, which will access your computer files and allow you to select the file you want to upload. For question number 2, you'll be asked to describe how your project will unfold, what the estimated timeline for the project will look like. Question number 3 asks you to describe the art form you will use and your artistic process. For example, what is the medium and your technique? What experiences have you had or preparation have you done that will shape the work and/or this project? Question number 4 asks you to describe your goals and/or aspirations for this work, and to detail why it's an important project. For example, does it move your work in a new direction or expand your artistic boundaries? How will an audience connect to or experience the work? Question number 5 relates to if you are collaborating with other individuals. If so, you're going to want to list their role in the project, why they are important to your project, and if they are also residents of Vermont. If there are no other individuals, you can just leave this blank. Once all of the answers have been recorded and uploaded, you'll want to click the required checkbox at the bottom of the page to confirm. It's this little box here. And you'll also want to make sure that you save frequently. It will automatically save, but it's never a bad idea to just keep saving as you go. Now, for the purpose of this Grantseeker workshop, we'll just go back and take a look at the written narrative segment. and see what your answers would look like if we had taken this option instead of recording our answers. So there are character counts included for each of these text boxes here. And again, characters include individual letters, punctuation marks, and spaces. I've already copied an answer to the first question here, and if I add more, I'm just going to copy a section and add it again so you can see what happens. And you'll see the whole box turns red and lets me know that I've gone over the character count, and it'll tell me specifically by how many. So I won't be able to submit the application until the character count has been fixed. So I'm just going to delete this, and now it gives me a character count again, and it turns green and lets me know that that's good to go. The questions here are the same as the narrative questions for the recorded answers. And once you're done, again, you'll go to the bottom and you'll click on the box saying that to confirm that you've answered all of the questions. So now we'll go to the project budget. In this section, you'll want to list all of the expenses and income related to your project. You're going to make sure your budget is concise, it's reasonable, it's balanced. Your total expenses should equal your total income. So for example, if your expenses total $7,500, your total income should also be $7,500. If you are working with other artists or assistants, consider how you're compensating them, again, and whether it is equitable compensation for their time. When listing your time creating the work in the expense section, you'll want to identify what this will involve rather than a breakdown of actual hours. For example, you might include ideation, research, creating drafts, and making the work. The expense section has an example above here in gray to provide some guidance. For the expense section, you'll see the artist's time here for the full award amount of $4,000. And in the explanation section, it shows that for this particular project, the artist's time creating the work will involve researching different locations, conducting interviews, rehearsing, shooting, and editing video. You'll want to provide enough detail that the panelists understand what it is that's going into creating the work. But again, you don't need to get into how many hours for each and what you consider your rate of pay. You don't need to have that specific information in there. So starting with expenses, you'll want to list all of the expenses that are related to your project. If you do need additional lines, you can combine your remaining expenses on one line and describe them as other. So for the purpose of this exercise, I've created a sample budget, and in the first expense line, I've entered my time at $4,000 and provided a picture of what that will involve in the explanation section. So I've got ideation, sketching, experimenting with materials and scale, painting, and collage. And assuming that, assuming that I've filled up all of these other rows, I've combined the rest of my expenses here at the bottom, just typing other. They add up to $1,000, and it includes $125 for lighting, $450 for frames, $275 for painting substrates, $150 for paint, whatever the remaining expenses might be that I don't have room for in here. And then the total expenses automatically tallies for you. For the income section here, you'll want to list how you plan to cover the expenses that are listed in the expense table above. Everyone is going to use the first line to enter the $4,000 Creation Grant Award. If your project has more than that amount in the expenses, for example, we have $5,000, we'll need to detail how we intend to pay the remaining $1,000 in this example. So I've added $1,000 in personal savings to balance my budget. So now I have $5,000 of total expenses and $5,000 in my total income. The last question in the budget section asks you to explain which specific expenses you plan to cover with Creation Grant funding, and any amount listed here will need to be an eligible expense. So for the sake of this example, I've entered my time creating the work here, which is pretty tiny. I don't know if you can see it, but then I just go on to say what that work is, and you can provide whatever details you need to help clarify there. Now we'll go back up to work samples and resume. Artistic excellence makes up the majority of the weight of this application, so we strongly recommend carefully reviewing the tips for submitting work samples, and you'll see a link in the application here as well. You'll want to upload media samples that demonstrate the quality of your work and that help reviewers understand your proposal. For each upload, you can use the additional fields to explain further the media samples to the reviewers, such as why this media sample is important and how it relates to your project. And that's right here. And those are optional boxes. So you'll upload your file, and then you'll have an opportunity to explain why that's important in each of these sections. For literary media samples, you'll want to upload no more than 15 pages total. Samples should be double-spaced using no smaller than 11-point font in Arial, Courier, or Times. You may include multiple writing samples in one PDF. For poets, line space may be different to accommodate formatting. You'll want to include examples of the type of writing you propose to create, show your plot line, provide examples of dialogue, or whatever is important to understanding and demonstrating your writing skill and your concept. For each upload, you'll click the Upload File button, which again will allow you to select a file from your computer and upload it. You can upload up to 10 media samples. Lastly, there's an optional resume section down at the very bottom. Providing a resume can support your project description and help the review team further understand your work. Resume presents your background and skills and will usually contain information about past presentations, publications, and exhibitions of or about your work. It might also include your educational background if that's relevant. Next, there are some optional sections for demographics. In this section, the questions of race, ethnicity, gender, identity, and disability are optional. The information will be used by the Council to improve our grant making, and we use this data to identify and evaluate progress toward our diversity, equity, and inclusion goals, barriers in the grant making process, and impact of our funding programs. It's important to note that this information will not be seen or used by panelists and will not influence the evaluation of your application. The Arts Council strives to make our application process as manageable as possible, and we really value everyone's input. You'll find a short survey for feedback at the bottom of the page here, along with a link to nominate yourself for consideration as one of our grant panels. And again, you would not be considered to serve on a round in which you have an active application. And finally, there is an agreement section, and each applicant will need to agree to the terms listed here. And then once all of the required questions and sections have been completed, you can submit your application by clicking the blue Submit button at the bottom of the page. And if you click it and you have not filled out all of the required questions, the portal will tell you that there's a problem, and it won't let you submit until it's been completed or fixed. Okay, and that concludes the presentation. So